All right, so today we're going to dive into something pretty fascinating, I think.
Okay.
We're talking about expressive arts therapy.
Oh, okay.
And it's this really cool interdisciplinary field, and it kind of sits right at the intersection of art and counseling and psychotherapy.
Yeah, it uses all these different art forms in a therapeutic setting.
Right, exactly. So like visual arts, music, dance, drama, writing, movement, all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And the sources that you've pulled together for this deep dive um, really paint this comprehensive picture of expressive arts therapy, like from the philosophy behind it to how it actually gets used, in practice.
Yeah, I think the source book in expressive arts therapy is going to be our main guide for this one. It's got so much great information.
Okay, fantastic.
Yeah.
So listener, for this deep dive, we want to really give you a strong grasp of the main ideas behind expressive arts therapy and some of the really cool techniques. And we're hoping to kind of guide you to some of those aha moments without, completely overwhelming you with information.
Yeah, for sure.
So, one of the things that really struck me is how expressive arts therapy, while it's a relatively new field, like in its modern form, it feels like this powerful reconnection to something so ancient.
Totally.
Mm-hmm.
One of the first things the source book points out is that ancient cultures and a lot of indigenous societies, still today, they didn't separate art from healing and celebration. They were like totally interwoven, right? Like singing, dancing, creating things. It was all part of marking these important moments in life and like honoring the interconnectedness of everything.
It's so true.
And that's such a contrast to how we often experience art now, right? It's often so separated into these different categories,
That can feel very separate.
distant from our daily lives.
Mm-hmm.
But expressive arts therapy is really bringing back that understanding of art as integral to our well-being. That wisdom that modern life is kind of fragmented.
It's like we've almost forgotten that fundamental connection between being human and being creative.
Right.
But what's really cool is that expressive arts therapy as a field is actively bringing that understanding back. And the book talks about some of these key figures who were really instrumental in that reintegration, like Paulo Nil.
Yeah, Nill's intermodal theory is so important. It basically says that all of our senses and creative expressions are like inherently linked.
Okay.
So engaging in one art form can totally unlock pathways and perspectives in others, even if you don't have a specific skills in either one.
That's so interesting.
Yeah, and he was a big champion of these low-skill, high-sensitivity art experiences.
I love that phrase, low skill, high sensitivity. It takes so much pressure off.
Right. It's not about being an expert, it's about the experience.
Totally. And then there's Sean McNiff and his idea of art as medicine.
Yeah, McNiff basically said that art itself can be therapeutic, that the imagination is a powerful force for healing. He really emphasized trusting the creative process, that journey of creation and reflection as a way to understand ourselves better.
Mm-hmm.
And he even connected expressive arts therapy to ancient shamanic traditions that incorporated art into rituals for healing.
That's fascinating, this continuous thread that connects contemporary practice with ancient wisdom.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
And then Natalie Rogers, she kind of built on her father's work, right?
Mm-hmm.
With that idea of creative connection.
Exactly. She really highlighted this interconnectedness between all the different forms of art, and her approach really focuses on creating that really safe and supportive environment in therapy.
Yeah.
Characterized by genuineness, empathy, unconditional positive regard.
So important.
So important. And within that safe space, clients are encouraged to move freely between the different art forms as a way to explore their inner world and gain self-understanding.
Yeah.
And the therapist is really following the client's lead in terms of what meaning emerges.
It sounds like each of these foundational theories offers this really unique perspective on the power of creativity in the therapeutic process.
I think so.
Now, the source book itself comes from a particular place. It's rooted in the Appalachian approach.
That's right.
So what makes that perspective unique?
Well, it's all about community and collaboration. Since the 1980s at Appalachian State University, they've had faculty from all these different disciplines, counseling, psychology, art, music, and more, all working together, teaching, writing, developing the expressive arts therapy curriculum.
That's so cool.
So it's very interdisciplinary, and that's led to this really collaborative community of practitioners known as the Appalachian Expressive Arts Collective.
I love that.
And the book itself is like a gathering place for all these different thinkers and practitioners.
And the Appalachian approach also often emphasizes a really deep connection to place in community.
It does. And that
Yeah.
can show up in activities that incorporate natural materials or focus on shared storytelling.
So it's not just about the theory, it's about practical wisdom coming from a community that's actively involved in this work. Yeah, that's really special. So we've touched on the history and some of the core principles, but what about the actual therapeutic relationship in expressive arts therapy? Like, how does incorporating art into therapy change that fundamental connection between the therapist and the client?
That's a great question. At the heart of therapy is this process of holding one another,
Yeah.
providing genuine care and support. And in expressive arts therapy, that healing happens through two main avenues: the therapeutic relationship itself and the process of making art.
Hmm.
And when we talk about the relationship, we're talking about the client, the therapist, and importantly, the artwork itself. The art becomes like this tangible resource, offering new perspectives and insights. It's almost like a third presence in the room.
I love that, a third presence.
Yeah.
It's not just about the words or the interaction with the therapist, but also about the interaction with and reflection on what the client creates.
Precisely. And the therapist's role is so vital. It requires deep compassion, active listening, paying attention not only to the spoken word, but also to the unspoken cues, like body language. And the goal is to create this space of shared humanity and vulnerability where trust can grow and the client's own inner wisdom can emerge.
Absolutely.
And the therapist approaches the client without any preformed ideas, remaining open to whatever unfolds through the art.
The book also mentions how expressive arts can be used in community settings, which feels especially relevant today.
Yeah, it does. The arts can offer this unique process and language that can bridge differences in personality, background, and culture.
Right.
So each person brings their own unique gifts and vulnerabilities to the work, and the shared act of creative expression can foster connection and understanding within a group.
Okay, so we've laid the groundwork with the history and the principles and the therapeutic relationship. So let's dive into the actual art-making process. What are some key things to consider when designing therapeutic experiences in expressive arts?
Chapter 3 of the Sourcebook goes into this in detail. It talks about the cyclical nature of the creative process, moving into a deeper level of experience, then bringing the artwork into being so it can be observed and responded to, and then reaching a sense of closure.
Okay.
And when it comes to designing these experiences, there are a few key principles. The first is establishing a clear intention for the session. What are you hoping will emerge or shift during the process?
Right. It's not just about creating something pretty. It's about having that specific therapeutic goal.
Exactly. And the book gives a good example comparing bookmaking in a craft class versus in expressive arts therapy.
Oh, yeah? What's that?
So in a craft class, the focus is on the technical skills of creating a well-made book. But in expressive arts therapy, bookmaking could be used to explore the idea of a container for personal feelings or to examine the different layers of the self.
Oh, that's a great example.
The underlying intention is different. It's about self-exploration and learning through the process.
What else is important when designing these experiences?
Well, preparing the materials in the physical space is crucial, and creating the time in that psychological space where people feel safe and encouraged to explore creatively. The book emphasizes planning low-skill, high-sensitivity activities to make sure they're accessible to everyone regardless of their artistic background.
Yeah, that's so key.
Then there's the concept of intermodal layering, which is intentionally blending different art forms.
How does that work?
Like you might start with a poem to evoke a certain emotion and then encourage movement based on that feeling.
Oh, wow.
And it's crucial to pay attention to both the process of making art and the finished artwork itself. The process can be really absorbing, and the finished product can offer so much insight through reflection and discussion.
That's so true. This idea of like dialoguing with the image. I
Yeah.
find that really fascinating.
It is. It comes from Jungian psychology, and it's this idea of treating the artwork as having its own voice,
Yeah.
letting it speak to its creator so that unexpected understandings can emerge.
It's like giving the subconscious a tangible form.
Yeah, and the Sourcebook reminds us that expressive arts therapy is more than just expressing yourself. It's a journey of learning and discovery that involves intention and openness to surprise.
And being aware of those symbols and metaphors within the art can help unlock deeper meaning.
Exactly.
So the second part of the book has all these examples of specific expressive arts experiences. Can you walk us through a few to really illustrate the variety and potential there?
Absolutely. Chapter 4, which is called New Growth. Beginning work in expressive arts has activities that are designed for the early stages of therapy or group work. The focus is on building rapport and easing any anxiety around making art.
Okay.
So, for example, triangles is this simple movement warm-up that explores leading and following within a group. And then there's My Muscles Are Not Afraid, where you use the feeling of being stuck as a starting point for movement.
Oh, wow.
You literally embody a stuck posture and then explore the impulse to move from there.
That sounds really interesting.
It is. And coming out of the jar is a fun one. It's meant to loosen up any inhibitions around movement and playfulness.
Okay, so that's kind of like the introductory level.
Yeah.
Then chapter 5, Taproot, goes into the deeper work.
Right. Pivotal Moments is a really powerful activity from that chapter. It's where adults create a dance based on a significant life event. So they're exploring the core of that experience through movement and sometimes even music.
Oh, wow.
I've seen some really profound shifts in clients through that activity.
Yeah, it makes sense. Using choreography to process and heal, that's incredible.
It is. And there are tons of examples using visual arts too, like collage on masonite boards uses found images to explore themes like hopes and dreams or body image.
So you don't have to worry about drawing skills for that one.
Exactly. And Life Timelines has participants visually map out their lives, marking significant events and reflecting on the patterns and lessons they've learned. And Body Outline Environment is this really cool intermodal activity. It combines movement photography, drawing, and poetry. It starts with participants physically shaping their bodies to represent how they're feeling, and then capturing that pose in a photograph. Then they create an environment for that image through drawing, and then respond to the artwork with words that eventually form a poem.
Oh, wow, that's amazing.
It really shows that intermodal connection that Nil talked about,
Yeah.
weaving together all those different art forms.
It's so cool how it all ties together.
All right.
And then chapter 6 and 7 explore community and spirituality. What kinds of activities are in those chapters?
In Chapter 6, which is about community, there's Community Museum, which uses everyday work objects to make sculptures and shared narratives.
Oh, that's neat.
It's designed to build stronger connections within organizations. And Collaborative Mosaic is great for long-term care facilities. Residents work together over time to create this shared visual artwork.
So using art to bring people together.
Exactly. And then Chapter 7 looks at the connection between making art and personal spiritual experience. So there's gesture, sound, and word, where individuals explore a personal issue through movement, sound, and writing.
Okay.
And 20 drawings is a really cool process using rapid-timed ink drawings that are inspired by the Tao Te Ching.
Right.
It encourages people to let go of control and tap into that more intuitive, creative flow.
I love that.
And then there's Dream Reentry, Finding a Gift, which guides participants to re-enter a significant dream in a relaxed state, interact with a figure within the dream, and then bring back a symbolic gift to represent through art.
Oh, wow. That sounds like a really powerful way to access unconscious material.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit more about that process and what kind of outcomes you might see?
Yeah, so with dream reentry, you're essentially using a guided imagery technique to revisit a dream and then interact with it in a way that allows for deeper understanding and insight. So you might ask yourself questions like, what is this dream figure trying to tell me? Or what gift are they offering me? And then you can bring that gift back into waking life and represent it through art, whether that's drawing, painting, sculpting, or any other medium.
It's fascinating how you can use art to bridge the gap between the conscious and the unconscious.
It really is. And the process can be incredibly insightful and healing.
Okay, so the last chapter we want to talk about focuses on working with children and adolescents. So what are some of the unique things to consider when using expressive arts therapy with younger people?
Chapter 8, Planting New Seeds, really emphasizes that expressive arts are a natural fit for kids and teens. They often communicate their emotions and experiences through images, sound, and movement more easily than through words alone.
That makes sense.
But a key consideration is developmental level. Their attention spans fine motor skills, verbal abilities, and capacity for abstract thought. The activities need to be tailored to be age-appropriate.
Right, so adapting the techniques to their needs and abilities.
Exactly. So Plant Watch is a great example. It encourages kids to connect with nature through careful sensory observation and journaling.
Okay.
Zulu Beads combines a hands-on craft with meaning-making. Kids create beaded messages and explore their relationships through the use of different colors, shapes, and patterns.
That sounds fun.
It is. And Reclaiming Girls' Voices uses role-playing movement and creative expression to help girls practice assertive communication and discover their authentic voice.
Love that.
And Black and White Photo Essay Books is a longer-term project for middle schoolers where they explore their sense of self and their community through photography and bookmaking.
Oh, wow, that's great. And the last example is Feelings Ensemble and Symphony. Can you tell us about that one?
So this one uses musical instruments and noisemakers to help children and teens identify and express the feelings associated with their concerns or challenges. They create short musical compositions to represent different emotions and then come together for a feeling symphony, where the facilitator acts as a conductor, guiding the different feeling ensembles to play at varying intensities.
It's so creative.
It's a really powerful way for them to explore their emotional landscape non-verbally.
It's amazing to see the sheer breadth of activities and how thoughtfully they're designed to address so many different needs.
I know. The Sourcebook is packed with practical ideas, and they're all grounded in these solid theoretical principles.
Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive,
Hmm.
what would you say is the most important thing for our listener to take away from our conversation today?
I think the core message is that expressive arts therapy really emphasizes this inherent human capacity for creative expression as a pathway to healing, self-discovery, and stronger communities. It reminds us that the arts belong to all of us.
It makes you reflect on your own experiences with creativity, doesn't it? Like,
Yeah.
how have those moments, big or small, connected with your own emotional well-being or your journey of self-discovery? We've explored so much, from Plant Watch for kids connecting with nature to Zulu beads for communicating visually pivotal moments, allowing adults to explore those big life experiences through movement, the Community Museum for building connections within groups, exploring self and community through those long-term black and white photo essay books, and the Feelings Ensemble and Symphony providing this nonverbal language for emotions.
It's important to remember that you don't need any special talent or experience to engage with art in this way. Even simple artistic engagement can be deeply meaningful and therapeutic. It's not about creating a masterpiece.
So here's a final thought for you, listener. Think about how intentionally bringing creative expression back into your own life, even in small everyday ways, might offer that sense of soul nourishment that we talked about and provide you with fresh perspectives on your own experiences and the world around you. Much like how those ancient traditions saw the deep connection between art healing and daily life, think about which of the activities we've discussed today sparked your curiosity, and maybe explore some similar creative avenues. You might be surprised by what you discover about yourself and the world around you.
I think that's great advice.
Thanks for taking this deep dive with me.
Absolutely. It was a pleasure.
And to you, listener, thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.
Bye.